Shalom, we're here on another Friday night at the headquarters of the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Up here in Harlem, where we've been since the beginning. We started out at 1 West 125th Street. We're here today under Commanding General Yohana, bringing this truth to our people, the so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the true children of Israel. And as the true children of Israel, taking back our culture is imperative. And part of that, you know if you're already in here, part of that is taking back our laws, statutes, and commandments, which restore us as a people and bring us to life. Part of that is our language, because our language is the heart and soul of everything that's in these scriptures. And if you can't open up the Tanakh and read our scriptures in the original language, then you're missing out. You're missing out. So we've been here immersing ourselves recently in the Hebrew, doing our best to shed the to get away from the using English letters. We got to dive in. It looks intimidating. It may be frustrating at first, but you got to dive in. So if you are not up to speed on the alphabet, drop us a line in the chat in the comments. We'll get you an official Isupk alphabet sheet, which will have the ancient script as well as the Assyrian script, which we picked up in captivity, but of course it's what the scriptures are preserved in. And you need to learn both. Just take some time with it, write it down over and over, sound it out loud, let it sink into your soul, and pick them both up, and then jump back in with us. And if you have it, then you're going to follow along with your own interlinear scriptures or with your own Tanakh in front of you and write down, and we're going to break these words down, see what we recognize that we've been dealing with recently. We've been focusing in on a lot of keywords, a lot of words we're going to see over and over in the scriptures, a lot of phrases that we're going to see over and over in the scriptures, and we're breaking down the scriptures that we will see again the morning after this weekly Friday night Hebrew class in the Sabbath service. Every Sabbath service, we go through a set of scriptures. We go through a set of 49 verses. And if we break down some of these verses here in the Hebrew class, then you'll be able to follow along in the Sabbath service, recognize these things. That is called spaced repetition. You go over it, you go to sleep, you wake up, you go over it again, and now you know it all. And now it's really sinking in. And so we're going to start today in Genesis, where we've been in the Sabbath service lately. We've been going over these early chapters in Genesis, going over these early foundational stories in the scriptures. And we're at a point where Jacob is traveling through and he's renamed. Everybody knows the story when Jacob is renamed by the Most High. First, he has to wrestle with the angel who tells him what his name is going to be. And then a couple of chapters later, the Lord tells him what his name is. And that's where we're at in Genesis 36, or we're in 35 and verse 10. So we're going to start out right here. This word right here, which we should all be able to at least read and recognize the characters of, is Ba-Ra'ash Yav, which means in the beginning. These are the first words of Genesis encapsulated in this one Hebrew word. I remember Hebrew words are typically built around a root word and built outward. So they're all built around, basic 2 or 3 letter root words. We add prepositions, like in this case, this ba is what signifies in this phrase, in the beginning. We'll add different letters that will signify a tense or possessive, and all of a sudden we've got a 6, 7, 8 letter word, but it's still built around a basic root word that we can recognize and be able to start to fill in context as we build our vocabulary. So this verse 35 and verse 10 in the English says, and God said unto him, and that's this first line right here. It says, Wayamar ha'alahayim. This Wayamar, you're going to see over and over and over and over in the scriptures, beginning verses, because this is how you say, and he said. And then it's going to clarify who the he is right here, ha'alahayim, which is literally the powers. There's ha being the, and alahayim being the word is typically translated into the scriptures as God. But this in the Hebrew is powers. So Waya Amar, again, we're breaking down the root word here, which is Amar, which is to say. Wa at the beginning of a word, this letter Wa at the beginning of a word means and. We should be starting to recognize or have a mental list of what the prepositions are that you see at the beginning of the word. We've already identified 3 before we even get 3 words into this scripture. We have the ba for in, the wa for and, the ha for the, and this ya here is what signifies that it's referring he. And the he is going to be clarified right here. So Wayamar ha'alahayim. And so that's and God said. So now that we know that, now we can figure out the context that this is the unto him. Now the unto him is easy to break down because we have another preposition. This la at the beginning of a word, anytime you see that letter at the beginning of the word, that's 2. So now, just like that, we've identified what? Ba, ha, wa, la as prepositions. We got in, the, and 2. So, Wayamar ha'alahayim. And the wa is the possessive at the end of the word, saying, hang on, let me swap this out. I'm going to use a different color for my notes underneath. Where are we at? And the next phrase here, Shamka Yaiquab. Well, Yaiquab, that's Jacob's name in the Hebrew. By this point, if you've been following along in the Sabbath service, you certainly recognize that. Shamka, now we get to identify another root word that we use all the time. We use in prayers, we use all the time. We use it in salutes. We use this word sham, which means name. Shamka is your name. And now we're breaking down possessives as well at the end of the word. That ka at the end of the word is yours. Shamka Yaiquab. So now, so far we have, and God said unto him, or in the Hebrew structure, and he said to the power, and he said to him, the powers is the he, Shamka Yaiquab, Jacob is your name. Your name is Jacob right now. Now this next line, La'aya Parah Shamka Iwad Yaiquab. So let's break this down. La'ah, if you've been around other brothers in this school for any amount of time, you certainly know this word. This is how you say no, or in this case, how you negate anything in a sense. You negate something, say no or not with the word la'ah. So this is to say not. La'ah yakurah. Just like we said, Wayamar is something that you'll see at the beginning of many, many verses. Wayakara is another word that you'll see at the beginning of many verses. This is called. So Yakara or Salak. Yakara, this everything encapsulated in this is shall be called. This is the future tense of Korah. So you shall not, you negated with that la'ah, you shall not be called. Shamka, again, your name, that caused your, Sham, Iwad, which is to say no more or no longer. Even if you didn't know that, by the time we're done with this line, you can fill that in because this last word, Yaiqua, is of course Jacob's name. Yaiqua. So La'aya Korah Ka Iwad Yaiqua. Your name shall not be, you shall not be called your name anymore, Jacob. So already we're seeing certain words multiple times. We've got two instances of Jacob's name. We've got Shamka twice. We're seeing very basic words like not and Amar and Yaparah are some of the most common words in the scriptures. So, and of course, Ha'alahayim, the powers. So we're seeing words, everything in this verse, in this very, very heavy verse, there's all things that you need to absorb and know going forward. So now the next phrase in English, in this verse, we're still in verse 10, is, but Israel shall be thy name. So we'll break this down in the Hebrew. Kaya, this word, this little word right here, kaya, is the word for or because. For in the sense of because. Here is since. Yashar. Better know what that means by now. If you're watching this, this is the name Israel. And what's this word again? It's the third instance of Shumka, your name. Your name. Shumka. And this word here, Yahya, is based on a root word that we got to know, which is Hayah, which is to be. So this is saying because Israel is like to be in the present form is going to be your name. So again, that verse in the English, and God said to him, thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called anymore Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. Why Amar Lawah. And he said, the power said to him, Shamka Yaikwa, your name is Jacob. Shamka Yaikwa. La'ayakura Shamka Iwad Yaikwa. La'a Yakura, you shall not be called Shamka Iwad, your name, anymore, Yaikwa. Kaya'am Yasha'ala Yahaya Shamka. Because Yashar Allah is your name. This is an excellent verse to let sink in. In this one verse, we learned what? 4 prepositions. We learned various possessives. We've seen basic words pop up multiple times. This is a verse to take in. So I'm going to give you a second, screenshot that, and we're going to keep it pushing. Hopefully I didn't just spray Windex in my drink. If I start sounding dizzy, y'all let me know. So we're going to get a little bit of verse 11. Let's keep it pushing. Actually, we're going to slide all the way down to verse 27. Genesis 35 and verse 27. Which in the English is, and Jacob came unto Isaac his father, unto Mamre, unto the city of, all right, we're going to start at verse 28. In the days of Isaac were 180 years, because a couple of months ago we laid the foundation of numbers. And as I said, spaced repetition is the key. So it's been a while since we had a bunch of numbers pop up in the scriptures that we've been going over. So again, at the top, Barasha, in the beginning, 35, and we're going to fit in 28 and 29 on the board right now. So this first portion of the verse, this first phrase, again, this is based on that root word haya, which is to be. So it is, and it was. Yom is the days. Yatazakak is Isaac's name in the Hebrew. Ma'af, which we should remember, Ma'ah is the word for 100. Ma'ah. Now, numbers take different forms to fit the tense, to fit the grammar, and to fit different situations, but as long as you remember the basics, as long as you remember the basic word for the numbers, you'll be able to recognize that in context and then get used to it over time. So that's why we don't need to break down these specifics. You just need to be able to recognize that ma'af is a variation of ma'ah, which is 100. And Shana is years. This is many of the numbers that we come across in Genesis. We're talking about how many years somebody lived to, how old they lived to before they died. And so this right here, Ma'ashana, is 100 years. Wa Shemanim Shana. So this is and 80 years. And that's how you say somebody's age in Hebrew. Ma'as Shana wa Shemona Shana, 100 years and 80 years. And then verse 29. Verse 29 in the English, and Isaac gave up the ghost and died, and was gathered unto his people, being old and full of years, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. So this thing right here is describing the ideal way to die. You lived a full life. You got all your people gathered to you, and then you're ready to die. He was full of years, meaning he lived his full life. And if you've been following it over the last few weeks in the Sabbath service, we went over the brother's life. He had an excellent full life. The Lord told him that he was going to be blessed. And then, he died. He died with his people all around him. His sons took care of him and buried him. And guess what? That's the opposite of how we die today in this hell. We don't die like that. We don't die with our family. When you die, if your family is there for you, it's a burden because they're poor and they're trying to figure out how to bury you. That's if you're lucky. Our people out there just dying and turning up in a grave behind a prison in Mississippi with their wallet still in their pockets. That's how we dying in this hell. And that's the curses. This is not how nobody else dies. Unless it's an active war, then maybe you'll die like that, be buried in a mass grave. But not when you're just supposed to be living. Not when it's supposed to be when your oppressor is in heaven just chilling. And we turning up in the woods and nobody investigates, nobody cares. Because we're in our hell. That's not how it's supposed to be. This is how we're supposed to die. Surrounded by your people, full of years, your sons bury you. And so that's what this scripture is describing. So in verse 29, why, why? It has cop. Your mouth. And we're going to break this up. And I'm making it a point to break all these verses up, phrase by phrase, so that we can start to put together the grammar and the structure of these sentences and make it feel like a language. We're not just learning words and building up vocabulary. We're learning sentences, paragraphs. We're learning how our people talked in the ancient times, how they dialogued with each other, how they lived, how they felt. So you got to break this thing up and make it feel like a language. And so this is Wayagawai, Yatazaka, Wayamat. And this Yagawai is, remember that Y is and. The Yahweh is the thing that is translated as gave up the ghost, which in the Hebrew is basically to say that he took his last breath. We have one word for that concept of he taking his last breath, and that's Yahweh. Or in its most basic form, it would be Gawai. Remember, this Yah is the he part. So why Yahweh is and he gave up the ghost. And that's heavy. That's so visual because you could picture that. Yatataka, which is Isaac's name, Wayama, and he died. As we keep going, anybody watching this should be writing these along. It's one of the most important ways in which you sink something into your brain is by writing it down, feeling it. There's plenty of studies showing that. So make sure if you're watching this, you're writing along with this. So now this Isupk, we should be able to break this down at this point because we should be recognizing something we've already seen twice in this sentence. That the Y is and he gave up the ghost. Mat is and he died. Isupk is and he gathered. Al-Anua, which An is people in the sense of a group of people, a nation. Al-Anua is to his people. I'm Yahweh. And this is the Quan is the word for old or elderly. So being old, he was gathered unto his people. Wa Shabai Yum. So this is saying Isupk and he gathered. Al-Anu was a Quan. Wa Shabai Yum. Now this phrase here, I want y'all to remember this. Wa Shabai Yum is a phrase that's translated into English and full of days. This word Shabai, if you were paying attention to the numbers, this is the word for 7. And so that word for 7, that concept, it's like slang for fullness. And you see this when you talk about, something that really sank in for me was when General Hyman was breaking down how our language does not speak in concrete forms of time. Like when somebody say you've been there all day, that's just slang. That can mean one thing to one person and a different thing to a different person. When we talk in time in the scriptures, it's a concept of time. It's not exactness. And so a lot of times in prophecy, the white man struggles when he sees the number 7 or 70 or things of that nature because he's trying to calculate 770 what? But it's a concept. And that's the white man can't grasp. And so Al-Anua, Zaquan, Washabai Yum, and full of days. He was Zaquan, he was old, Washabai Yum, and full of days. And that's all that you can hope for the Most High to allow you to die, gather with your people around you, old and full of days, and ready to just give up the ghost. And so another heavy verse we should start to be, looking out for a lot of common words, a lot of common formatting of words with this why God at the beginning of words. We saw that 3 times in one line. Why you go why math, why Isupk. Shana, which is years. We learned how to say years. or we learn how to break down somebody's age. Ma'af, which is 100, Ma'at Shana, Washamani Shana, and 80 years. And then we got to this breakdown of Isaac dying peacefully. Why Tazakat, Wayamath, Wayasap, Al Anu was a Kwan, Washabai, Young, old and full of days. So we're gonna let that, and then we're gonna transition with this last part of this verse, which is Aishwa wa Yaikwab Bunua. Oops, I missed the first part. And so after all of that, Waikubaru Aswa, Aishwa wa Yaikwab Bunua. So immediately we should recognize Yaikwab's name. Wa, of course, means and Jacob. Aishwa here is Esau's name in the Hebrew. This is Esau. Bunua, your bun is your son. Bunua is sons. Of course, when we pluralize something like right here, that yum at the end of a word is the pluralization of the word. But sometimes when it goes right into a possessive, the ma at the end will be dropped. And so here it's Bunyawa, which is his sons, plural. And they did what? They wiped the Baba Aswa. They buried him. And so now we're going to move on and find out what Esau did next. As we know, Esau is the progenitor of our eternal enemy, our oppressor, the so-called white man. One of the reasons we know this is because it was prophesied that as twins, Jacob and Esau will become two completely different types of people who would be at odds with each other forever. And then when Esau came out the womb, he looked like a genetic mutant with red skin and hair all over. I don't know if y'all saw some videos going viral recently with some Edomite sitting in a barber chair, but he had his shirt off and he was shaving his back, and it looked like they were shaving a gorilla. That's how hairy these people are, and everybody knows this. That description in Genesis is vividly a description of the so-called white man. But, of course, that's not the only reason we know that. Because as the scriptures go on, everything that Esau does spiritually connects to the white man today. Everything that Esau does, you can look out there and see Esau doing today. And it all starts back here in Genesis. And so in verse 36 and 8, again, Bara Asha 36 and 8. In the English, it says, thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. And this verse is important because this is a verse that establishes clearly and concisely every different name we're going to see Esau called on throughout the scriptures. So there can be no question when the Lord is referring to Mount Seir or when the Lord is referring to Edom, that he's referring to the literal descendants of this one man, Esau. So why Yashab? Yashab is to dwell, is to live somewhere. This is a root word you can see immediately. It is just Yashab, to dwell. Of course, this wa is end. You should know that by now. Isupk. You just saw this is Esau's name. Bahar. Sha'aya. Bahar Sha'aya. Har is the word for mountain. Depending on context, it could be hill, but here we know that it's referring directly to the word that follows. Of course, this Ba represents in. Sha'ir is the name of the mountain, Seir. So Yashab Isupk Bahar Sha'ir. And dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. And we know that this continues to fit the so-called white man to a T because he's a caveman. What did we just describe? We saw somebody in the barber's chair that looked like a caveman, like they were trying to take a caveman straight out of the cave and clean him up. This is a cave dweller from the beginning. While we were in the desert, while we were chilling in the plains and in the valleys with rivers and nice, beautiful trees and gardens and everything, Esau went up to find a cave in the mountains. That's the white man. Isupk, which is of course Esau's name again. Hawa'ah, this is the word for is. This word comes up in the scriptures, looks like about 1,500 times in the scriptures. This is the word for that, it, he, is, and that in the sense of is. Because you could read this with the word that too. You could say Isupk, that, Edom. This is a word that connects these things. Isupk, Hawa'ah. Adawan. So Yashab, this is probably this is the common word that we should definitely take note of in this verse is Yashab. Because we're going to see a lot of talking about, people dwelling in various places. So Yashab and dwelt Isupk Bahar Sha'ir in Mount Seir. Isupk, Esau, Isupk, Hawa'ah, Adwan. Esau is Edom. Simple, straight, to the point, setting the stage for everything to come, setting the stage for the scriptures where the Most High said, set thy face against Mount Seir, setting the stage for the scriptures where the Most High said, Edom saith, we will rebuild, but the Lord is going to throw down. That all traces back here where the Most High made sure we would never forget where Esau went and who he became. So let's keep going. As a matter of fact, before we fully pass on from that, let's examine one more thing in this verse. We're just going to go right to the next verse and keep flowing through this.
Shout out to everybody on the chat. Super Afwan, Shalom, Yabashina Shakuta, Martilo de Guerra, Isupk, Haiti, Isupk Buffalo, New York, and Ra'ash Karab. Shalom, Yabashina Shakuta.
Shalom to everybody in the chat. Excellent to have you here. I hope y'all all got a pen and paper out and you're writing this down and following along. You're taking back our language. So, this Mount Seir, this is a mountain range in the country of Edom, and this comes from a word that means rough. And what does Esau pride himself on being? A rugged mountain man, Bear Grylls in the woods, cooking with 2 sticks and a piece of aluminum. That's Esau. Wants to be in the mountains, in the caves, roughing it. That's what they call it, right? Let them have it. But they're just showing who they are spiritually. Just like that I know you've seen that Roman Empire challenge recently. Yeah, on TikTok.
The licking of the toes?
No. So these it was where white women would go to their boyfriends, and their boyfriends or their husbands would just be like standing, in the kitchen just chilling or whatever, and they would record them and they would ask them, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And their reactions, all of them would be like, where did that come from? So like, I just wondered, what made you ask that? They would be all creeped out. They're like, all the time. But what made you ask? I think about it all the time. And all of them said the same thing, that they're always thinking about the Roman Empire. Because spiritually, they're those same people here. They asked them this completely out of the blue, like they had never talked about this ever in their life. And caught them all saying, I think about it all the time. Because this is just a spiritual continuation from Esau and caves down to the Roman Empire, down to America.
They are lived from spiritually Egypt and Sodom, but they are literally the Romans.
Time. And spiritually Edom and Sodom because they represent oppression and sexual degeneracy and perversion and all types of nasty, degenerate sexual behavior. They picked up the baton from Sodom. The Lord got rid of Sodom, and the white man exceeded Sodom. And in verse 9,
Shalom, Abatza. Shalom, warrior.
While Allah, this Allah is these. And it's a common word, basic word, that you're going to see hundreds of times in the scriptures. It's good to know while Allah is in these. And this Haladawaf is the generations. And this word here, we talk about words typically being built around 2 or 3 letter root words. This is a word of its own, but you should recognize the word that it is based on, which is a very simple word, which is yalad, which is to beget. Yalad is to beget. Haladawa, Slakin. Thalawa is generations. Obvious connection, but this is a word of its own. And it's just a reminder that if you get these basic words, you can start to really fill in context and be able to break down words. All you got to do is start to build up a vocabulary of some of the frequent words that you see. And Isupk, of course, is Esau. So now it's saying these are the generations of Esau. So we've got to find something out here that connects to today as well. So what can we recognize and break down here right off the bat? Out of one we just saw in the last verse, right? That's Edom, which is just the nation way of saying Esau is the Edomites. Edom is Esau, as we just learned in the last verse. Bahar Shai, you saw the same phrase. Ba is a preposition meaning what? When you see it at the beginning of the word, it means in. Har is the word for mountain. Sha'ir is that word, is that mountain that means roughing. Bahar Sha'ir, in Mount Seir. This word we haven't seen today. It's a very basic word. Abi, the father of Edom. Esau is the father of the nation of Edom. And they dwelt in Mount Seir. And it is crucial to never forget that, because all you got to do is pull up your Bible and search up the word Seir to find out very clearly how the Lord feels about Esau to this day. And no matter how much these Christians and whoever else try to come up with these cop-outs and say Esau was already wiped out, the Edomites were already wiped out, the Edomites were some little Arab tribe that got wiped out, that doesn't match up with these scriptures. If you pull up, look at this. If you go to Ezekiel, the 35th chapter, and you read about Seir, this is the Lord talking about a people that he's going to keep around forever just to hate. All through verse 35, the Lord said that Esau has to be made desolate. Read it. We're not going to. It's so much in this chapter that we don't have time to go over all this today. But it says, "Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it, and say unto it, Thus saith the Lord God: Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out mine hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred." Now, perpetual, I don't know if y'all need a dictionary out there, Christians, but perpetual means before, now, and in the future. Perpetual means forever from the past and forever going forward. Perpetual doesn't mean you're going to get wiped out tomorrow. Perpetual means you're going to be here for the next 2,000 years for the Lord to keep hating. And it said, and for you to keep hating us, because we were prophesied to be against each other from the womb forever. So because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, meaning the Lord is watching the hatred that Esau has had for us all throughout all these generations. This is not some insignificant little tribe of Arabs that got wiped out in the desert. This is somebody that has had a perpetual hatred against the Most High's chosen people. You can't get out of these prophecies. You can't weasel your way out trying to claim that it's somebody else. It's clear as day, if you're being honest with yourselves, who this connects to. And then it goes on to tell in great, eloquent detail what the Lord is going to do to this nation for that perpetual hatred that they have had against his people. And so let's come back to this. Wa Allah, Salawat, Aishwa, Abya Arwan, the father of Edom, Bahar Sha'ayah, in Mount Seir. Let's keep going to verse 10. Now, verse 10 starts to go a little bit into those generations. Verse 10 in the English is, these are the names of Esau's sons. Actually, we're going to slide down to verse 12 because we want to establish the lineage of some particular sons. So, what's number 9? Hayatha, Hayabagash, which is to say, and Timnah was the concubine La'aliapaz to Eliphaz. And this word, this name, Timnah, is just an Edomite name. They didn't even bother to try and break that down in the Strong's. That's just an Edomite name, Timnah. Hayatha, which is again a very basic root word. Hayat is the basis of this word. Hayatha is was. This is the what the white man would call the feminine version of was. Hayalagash is concubine. Don't get tied up on that. I know some of y'all, some of you clowns out there like to say that concubine means that you can have sex with Edomites. That's not what that means. But you're going to do what you're going to do. Just remember that the Isupk doesn't have anything to do with it or any of you other groups. La'aliapaz is of Eliphaz, which is this name comes up twice in the scriptures. This is the name of one of Job's friends, if y'all remember that. And this is Esau's son's name. And this just means, this is a name that if you break it down into the Hebrew, means the The powers is fine gold. But those are the only times that comes up in the Hebrew is those two individuals. Bun Isupk. Bun, you know it's how you say son of Esau. Wa Thalah. Another opportunity to recognize a root word and a somewhat complex tense structure. Thalah is based on Yalad, which is to beget. The Wa, of course, is and, which is to say, and she, this concubine, begot La Aliapaz Ah, which this word ah, you're going to see a lot. We haven't talked about this. We haven't come across this today yet. But this is a word that does not have an equivalent in English. It connects the subject to the verb. So here, La Aliapaz Ah Imulak. But the ah here is Wathalad. So it's connecting this verb to beget. Wathalad is two eliphazes. You can separate that out. Wathalad, Af, Imulak. And that Imulak is Amalek. This is one of the sons of Esau through the generations of Esau. This is the grandson of Esau. And Amalek goes on in the scriptures to become the chief tribe of Esau, which you would recognize today as the people that we're not supposed to talk about on the air. You will recognize that today as the guys that claim to be us. The guys that want to call this glorious shield of David a star. Those guys are Amalek, which is the chief tribe of Esau. Because you know, the white man hates nothing more than when you point out that the so-called Jewish man is just another brand of white man. He's just a white man with a different language. That's all. Which really ain't that different, because the bastardized thing they call Hebrew is mostly German. So he's just a white man who breasts different. But they hate it when you point that out. Because they hate their own chief tribe for being in control of everything. They hate the group that runs all the industries. They hate the group that create all the inventions out of Esau come out of them pretty much. So that while they're sitting in their trailer park tweeting how they hate Amalek, and they will bounce off the walls if you point out the obvious fact that they're just a version of white people. So, with that said, let's run through that a little bit. Exodus 17 and 16. Now, rack your brains if you've been following for the past couple of months or so. See if y'all remember how to say Exodus in the Hebrew. I want to see, before I start writing, I want to see if anybody has it in the chat. Excellent. Excellent. The brother just spelled it out in the chat. This is, let me make sure this is dry. Shout out to Trooper Sha'afwan, who just spelled it out in the chat. Shemawah, because the books of the Torah are named after the first words of the book. And in Exodus starts out, and these are the names. Shemawah is the names. And so we're going to be here in, oh, where we go? (17 and 13). Because everything in the Bible, some things in the Bible are spoken of in terms of this is going to be the case forever. And the Lord didn't write it that way for no reason. So whenever somebody tries to tell you that something just happened 3,000 years ago and it just fizzled out and those people are gone now and that's not relevant to today, look at those people like they got two heads and turn around and walk away because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know the Bible, and that goes for all of these so-called Christians. So, Exodus 17 and 13, or somewhat 17 and 13. Wa'echalash, Yahushua, Af, Imla. So this word right here, Chalash, is defeated. In the English, this verse says, and Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And if you discomfort somebody with the edge of a sword, there ain't no coming back from that. That people is vanquished. They're defeated. They're overthrown. They are discomfited. And that's this word, chalash. This word only comes up 3 times in the whole scriptures. This is talking about being laid down completely. This is talking about being overthrown and wasted away. Wa'yachalash. And he discomfited, defeated, overthrew. Wa'yachalash. Yahushua, which is Joshua's name in the Hebrew, and that's who is doing the discomfiting with the edge of the sword. Af, which is connecting this verb, chalash, the defeating, the discomfiting, the overthrowing. Why chalash Yahushua af Imla, meaning he did this to Amalek. Why chalash Yahushua af Imla. Wa'af, meaning he wasn't done. Imwa, meaning his people. Remember, Im is people as in a group of people, a nation of people. Imwa, Laka, which is with the edge. Literally, this is based on this word pa, which if you're paying attention, that's the word for mouth. In the ancient script, which is a pictographical script. This is the letter pi. This is a depiction of a mouth, wide open. So your pi is your mouth. It's saying the mouth of the sword. That's poetic. Like Kalash Yamsha Anla wa Anwa Lapya, with the mouth Karab of the sword. Karab is sword. And that's a glorious word and a common word. This comes up about 200 times, over 200 times in the scripture, because there was a lot of discomforting that the Lord had us doing to other people with Lapia Karab, with the edge, the mouth of the sword. So in this verse, and his people with the mouth of the sword. And verse 14. And this is a verse that I want you to just soak in, because this is going to happen. It didn't happen in Exodus, and you can find that out because they keep on mentioning this tribe of Amalek all the way down through. But it's going to happen. Verse 14, and the Lord said unto Moses, why Amar, remember I said we're going to see that at the beginning of many verses in the Bible, because many verses throughout, especially in Exodus, is going to start out with you see, I'm not even reading right now, because so many verses start out just like this. Wayamar Yahweh al Mashah. And the Most High said to Moses. Remember, we broke this down, and that he is going to be identified, said, Waya Amar, Yahweh al Mashah. The Most High said it, al Mashah, to Moses. Kathab, which is what I'm doing right now. This is the word for write. This is a command to write, to record. Kathab. This is the root. This is the word right here. Kathab, Za'af, which is based on this. This is how you say this. Zakarwan, or memorial, because the word Zakar means remember. Zakarwan is a remembrance or a memorial, something to remember. Basapar. Sapar is book. In the book. Washayum, which the root word here is shawum, which is to place or to set or to put down. Washayum, Bazanya. because azan is the ear, and the ear, of course, represents hearing, but azanya is put it. Make sure Joshua hears it is basically what we're about to say. And in English, it says, rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. Washayam, put it. Ba'azanya, in the ears or the hearing. Yahushua of Joshua. So what is this thing that Moses is being commanded to kathab, write down or record? To kathab for a zakarwan, for a memorial, basafar, in a book, washayam, ba'azanya, and put it in the ears. Think of this the way we were taught today. This is slang. Put it in his ears. Make sure he gets it. Make sure he hears it and knows it. Don't just say it to him. Put it in his ears. Yahushua of Joshua.
Still use that slang today.
For real. That makes perfect sense. If you hear it, this is how we talk. And somebody out there is going to tell me this is a white man's book. Come on, man. Kaya Matha. Now, it's like Macha. Amacha. Zakar. I want to focus on this phrase right here. Kaya Amacha, Zakar. This kaya we talked about earlier, that means because. So this Most High is now we got all the way down here. The Most High commanded to Moses, Amar Yahweh al-Masha, Kathab, right. Za'af Zakarwan, for a memorial or remembrance. Basapar, in the book. Basapar. Washayam Ba'azanya, put it in his ears. Yahushua, in the ears of Joshua. Kaya Macha Amacha. If anybody's been following along lately, we've said this a few times in our language. If you say a word twice, that's how you doubling it. You're emphasizing it all the way. So this is saying, this is the word for blot out. And that's why it's translated into English to, I will utterly put out the remembrance. Zakar, remember, this is the word for remember. And the Most High is saying Kaya, because Macha Amacha, utterly put out the car from remembrance. Amalek, you know his Amalek's name, right? So the Lord said he's going to utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek. Ma'atakaf ha Shemayim. So this Ma'atakaf, another preposition at the beginning of the word is ma. That is from. The kaf is under or underneath. That's this word right here. Ma'asakah, from under Hashemayim. This is Genesis chapter 1. You should know this. Shemayim is the heavens. So the Most High said in the English, and the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Amalek as the chief tribe of the Edomites. And we just read how the Lord feels about Mount Seir and Edom. So how do you think he feels about their most successful tribe? They got something coming for them. Don't forget it. Don't let nobody tell you it's already happened. These things are in the earth right now. That's clear from the scriptures. That's clear if you're paying attention. Now, if you're an Edomite and you're trying to cover up your sins and you're trying to find a way that this does not apply to you, that the Lord does not hate you forever, then of course Esau is going to be some insignificant little band of Arabs that got wiped out 3,000 years ago. Then of course Amalek's story ended 4,000 years ago. Of course.
It don't matter. It don't matter.
Yeah. According to y'all, it don't matter. It don't matter. This is 4,000 years ago. This don't have nothing to do with today, right? Right? The Lord loves everybody today, right? That's how y'all can sleep at night with the crimes that you commit through the earth. That's how you can be the biggest degenerate, the biggest sexual deviant, the biggest murderer, the biggest threat to all the peace and harmony of the planet, the biggest threat to the animals and the trees. Because this is just some stuff that happened 3,000 years ago, and it don't matter. It don't have nothing to do with today. Those guys that the Lord hates forever, perpetually, they're gone. I don't know where they are, right? According to y'all, who knows where they are? Well, there's a lot of talk in these scriptures for some little insignificant group of people. There's a lot of passion in this verse right here. In these two verses right here. Wa'yafalash Yahushai Ath Amalek, and discomfited Joshua, discomfited Amalek. Well, I'm his people and his people, Lakyakarah, with the mouth of the sword. Wayamar Yahweh al Mashah, and the Most High said to Moses, Kathah Sa'ath Zakarwan. Write it down. Kathah Sa'ath Zakarwan. Put it for a memorial. Basapar. In a book. This sure sounds like something that's going to be taken care of next week, right? Come on, man. Washayim Ba'azanya Yahushua. Put it in Joshua's ears. Make sure he remembers it and gets it. Kaya Makah Amakah. Because I will utterly blot out Makah Amakah Azakar, the remembrance Amalek of Amalek, Mathakah Ha-Shemayim, from under the heavens, because the Most High made it clear that he will hate Esau forever, and that all of the generations of Esau that we went over today, that include Amalek, the Most High got his sights set right on them. But they didn't go anywhere because there's a reason for them to be here. They're here to be hated. a vessel unto honor and a vessel unto dishonor. They're here to be used and to be hated, and in the end, they're going to get their judgment. And that's how it's going to happen, and that's how it got to happen. And with that, we'll be back next week, and I'll pass the class over to Priest Officer Samir Yatazar.
Damn right. Clap it up. Most High in Christ. We are the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. As you know, the Passover is upon us. We are literally 6 weeks away from the Passover, April 20th. Make sure you go to isupk.com to pay your Passover fee. ISUPK security announcement. We are the ISUPK, started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother and sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After the 6 months period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry, tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18 and 21, Malachi 3 verses 8 to 10, means 10th in the Hebrew, ma'ashara. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, give to the treasury department or teacher, priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you will like. Upcoming holy convocation, which is the Passover, which I mentioned in the beginning, April 20th in Durham, North Carolina. We are going to be there from the 17th to the 22nd. The 17th is going to be the lamb slaughter, and we also have different activities throughout the week, such as the kids' party, the children's party, the black party, the lamb slaughter, like I mentioned, the black party, and also the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, which follows right after the Passover on the 20th. All right. If anyone wants to be a trooper in the school, start wearing all black boots, shirt, pants, headband, or war scarf. Any sister want to become a sister in the school, contact your camp leader near your zone. With that, the visual at Majam, which means to stand. At Majam Shabbat, at Majam Barak, Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushua Barak. To the sisters, Yahweh Shemar Al Tam Ba'Hashem Yahushua. Dismiss.